This is Go Powercat publisher Tim Fitzgerald, and we appreciate you listening to the Powercat Podcast. You can now subscribe to our podcast with iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, among many others. Or you can just come to GoPowercat.com and use the Megaphone.fm player. And remember, K-State fans, you can get 30% off an annual subscription to GoPowercat.com. Complete, independent, professional coverage of Kansas State sports with analysis and commentary you will find nowhere else. Now here's the Powercat Podcast.
The following is a Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to the Powercat Podcast, presented by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. It's the Powercat Podcast. And now, let's go to the Spirit Street Studios. Here's your host, Go Powercat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the Powercat Podcast. As we wind down July, football camp opens August 1st up at the Veneer Football Complex. Where did the summer go? It's been amazing how much information we've been able to supply to you here at GoPowercat.com as summer has progressed. Lots going on, lots of information, and big happenings here at GoPowercat. One of the things we will be adding this year is a post-game Powercat podcast, and we've done a post-game one that was, a lot of post-production went up on Monday, and honestly, nobody listened to it. It was dated by then. People were already shifting their minds into the next game. With me not traveling with the team anymore because of health, and also because the other guys do a great job, and what do they need me for? Now I'm kind of at home base. So I will be here throughout the season with one exception, and be able to come into our brand new WTC Gig Pirate Studios and sit down and call the guy we're going to have on as our post-game analyst. He's in Frisco, Texas, but he watches every K-State game. It is his team, and his name is Brien Hanley. Feel free to call him Big B. It's his nickname and his name on the Go Powercat message boards. Brien Hanley was part of that remarkable 1997 junior college recruiting class for Coach Bill Snyder that changed the Kansas State football program forever, and in many ways changed college football forever by proving that you could win at the highest levels recruiting junior college players. It was once taboo and thought of as kind of cutting corners, and Coach Snyder proved that you can build a really good football team with junior college players, and he came to K-State, a native of Louisville, through Coffeyville Community College, and played left guard from the time he stepped on campus till the time he was done. Brien Hanley started a podcast this year called Let's Talk Ball. He'll touch on that a little bit. It's available at ltbpodcast.com, and it is very good. He tackles a different topic, quite often football, but he's a sports fan. He talked quite a bit on one podcast I listened to about hockey, and he delivers really good messages, really good thoughts, and makes it very entertaining for a guy who's sitting in front of a microphone all by himself, talking for 30 minutes on a topic. It's not easy to do. He'll be joining us all season long with the post-game podcast as our football analyst. Another thing that's going to be happening at Go Powercat is our Power Chats, and we're getting very close to announcing the first season of the Power Chat. We're short one show right now. We got one more to record, and we're working to book our final guest for that first season 1.1. We will do 1.1 through 1.4 during this first sports year of the Power Chat, doing 4 shows at a time, broken up in 2 segments. So it'll essentially be a Monday and Tuesday segment when we drop the first one in early August. It's really exciting, and if you're looking for a bunch of sports talk, that's probably not the place you're going to find it, because we want to have a show that's a little bit more timeless and not really be a breakdown of all the other information you can find in other media corners. Our goal with the Power Chat is to humanize all the K-State people, be them celebrities, coaches, athletes, administrators, fans, donors, whomever they may be, so that you get to know them pretty well. And the Power Chat has been awfully fun to record, and my congratulations to Zach Carlson for his job on the production end as we make use of our new WTC Gig Powered Studios with the video set that's coming real soon, and we're excited. And also a shout out to Ryan Wallace for a remarkable opening montage for the Power Chat. It's awfully fun. But let's get into this week's Powercat Podcast, and of course we're sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. When you're coming to town for the games, just stop at the Fridge. Get everything you need right there. Don't worry about bringing it to the game. You don't have to pack up the car with all that. Stop in the fridge and get all your booze, be it beer or wine or whiskey or rum, right off the booze tree. They actually have trees in the back area of the fridge, which they grow all of their alcohol fresh, and they pluck the bottles right off the tree. It's a remarkable process. I couldn't believe when I saw it. Get into the fridge. They're great people. It's a great store, a wide selection, and very knowledgeable people. If you've got questions about products, you want something special, they can help you at the fridge. Get into the fridge. Stop in and say hi to Kevin and everyone. They are the proud sponsors of the Powercat Podcast. And this segment is brought to you by Tanner's. If you're not able to go on the road and you're kind of in the area, come on into Tanner's. That's a great place to watch a game, and you'll be able to watch it with your fellow K-Staters. They have TVs everywhere. There's nowhere you sit where you don't have multiple TVs in your line of vision, and really they're high enough where nobody blocks your line of vision. So get into Tanner's when you're in town. And now let's dive into this week's Powercat Podcast from the WTC Gig Powered Studios, and I am Go Powercat publisher Tim Fitzgerald. Zach and Riley have the week off because we're bringing in a very special guest for this week's podcast. And now we bring in Big B himself here on the Go Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor, Brien Hanley from his home in Texas. Brien, thanks for doing this, and thanks for being part of the Powercat post-game podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. You and I are going to have breaking down games as soon as we can hook up the night or day of that game. It'll be fun.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for having me be a part of this. It's something I've wanted to get into for a long time. I'm glad the opportunity presented itself, so I can't thank you enough.
Well, you kind of presented yourself. I saw a link to your podcast on Facebook. The group Pulse of K-State Football that was started up, I think, by Joe Hall, who's no longer around because he's part of the program. So I went, okay, let me go listen to this because let's be blunt here. There's a lot of bad podcasts out there, and if people want to do it, that's great. It's fun, and they want to get their opinions out there. And I listened to you, and I listened for about 5 minutes. I went, this dude gets it. Yeah, he's good. I don't think you appreciate how hard it is what you do. Sit down in front of a microphone for 30 minutes or whatever and go on a topic by yourself. That's tough, and you make it very entertaining, so I applaud you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's something that I wanted to get into with my brother, and unfortunately he passed away 6 years ago, so I just pretty much put the idea out of my head. And, I was speaking to, a former K-Stater who's one of my best friends, Darren Howard.
Yeah.
And I just approached him and just said, hey, you know what? What if we do a podcast? And before I could even get it out of my mouth, he was like, yes. So we kind of put it together. He does all the audio stuff because he is technical, no studio, no sound and all that stuff because I don't know any of that stuff. And I just kind of put it together, and it's come together. We're having a lot of fun with it.
That's
a lot of fun.
That's funny. Darren does that. That's amazing. It's where's he at now? Is he down there?
Yeah, he's in Tampa.
Oh, okay. He's
back in Florida. Yeah. Yep, he's back in Florida.
Very cool. Well, let's get to your questions from Wabash Station, and we're going to kind of touch on your career and the program when you were around, and then in the second half get more into current K-State football.
Okay.
Let's go with the one thing prior to Coach's first retirement that really changed the course or the trajectory of the program and maybe college football.
Well, it's, me and the guys kind of get around and we talk, and it's pretty much the same. I know everybody says this, but it is literally the recruiting. And it's not that I don't blame Coach Snyder for this. I know people want to bash him for that, and I'm never going to be a Coach Snyder basher. I'm just not that guy. But with the first time when he retired, before that, we got pretty much any junior college player that we wanted.
Right.
And, Kansas, I hate to say it, it's not the hotbed of high school football. So you're not going to have 40 guys that can play Big 12 caliber football coming out of the state every year. That's just not a realistic thing. Having said that, we could supplement it with junior college players. A lot of them were in Kansas. Well, it just seemed like the SEC figured that out because I'm sure they just dissected what Coach Snyder was doing. It was like, how is he doing this at Kansas State? What is going on? And that was one of the reasons. And now those guys, they're from Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, and Louisiana, and they have just decided, you know what, we can get those guys to come back home, and they do, and that has changed things.
It's amazing because Coach Snyder made it acceptable. It was just unseemly.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. You were cutting a corner to recruit JUCO guys, and now everyone does it.
Right.
Maybe short of Notre Dame, everyone delves into the recruiting process of junior college guys.
Right.
And the irony is that he used what was his advantage. You're right. There's not many high school players in the state of Kansas, but there's JUCO football, and there's really good JUCO football. And the irony now is because of the SEC influence, K-State can hardly get those players out of Kansas JUCOs because they've been placed there by Georgia, by Tennessee, by Florida, and they're going back to those schools, or they want to go back into the SEC. And nobody can blame a college football player for wanting to do that now. But he really did make junior college football recruiting acceptable, part of the game, and I, in some ways, I'll give him credit that the SEC is really powerful now because they've supplemented their high school recruiting with those junior college kids.
Makes a huge difference.
It does. It really does. If you've got a glaring hole that you need to plug, you can go find a junior college guy that at the very least will make the position more competitive and probably give you experience and an older body. I mean, there's a big difference between a 17 and a 19 or 20-year-old. There just is. KSU Cat 80 wants to know what was the most memorable game you played at K-State that you were involved in.
That's an easy one. 1998 Nebraska.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. I mean, that was a great day. I mean, I just remember from start to finish, 21 years later, I can remember it. We were just, nobody slept the night before. I remember everybody was up. We were sat in our living room till 4:00 in the morning. We couldn't sleep. And it was just a great, it was a good football game. That's number one. Yeah. It was a really, really good football game. And to be able to beat them, and I'm a guy that, hey, I know that we hadn't beat them in 29 years. And Coach kind of tried to deflect that from us and kind of said, hey, you can't put the 29 years on you guys. You weren't a part of that. He goes, this is our year. This is a different year. This is a different football team, even from the year before. So we kind of fed off of that, and we thought we were better than they were. And I think in past teams before that, they didn't think, well, a lot of times they weren't better than Nebraska. But we thought we were better than they were. And even when we got down early and even late, we just thought, we're going to win because we're better than they are. And we did. It was great to have everybody run on the field, the celebration. And it was just a good time. Great game.
And it wasn't a face mask, was it? It was clearly he tackled him by the shoulder. Despite,
no. Yeah, exactly.
Despite the altered photographs we now see today. Clearly, they
exactly.
Did you have
face mask?
Did you have an angle on that play, or were you back on the bench talking to your coaches?
Well, by that time, it was late in the game, so we were all standing on the sideline, and I have no idea how a referee that's standing 10 feet away did not see that. It was unbelievable. It was clear as day, but you know what? Hey,
That's what changed under Bill Snyder. Those breaks went K-State's way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if one goes our way, who cares?
You got it. It was a lot of years where it went the other way. What's the most memorable or inspirational lesson Coach Snyder taught you while you were at K-State, and maybe you still use it to this day?
Just to be accountable.
Yeah.
Just to be accountable. Don't do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it all the time. just being accountable. It seems like a simple thing, but think about everyday decisions that either people do make and don't make that they should make. And that was just his thing. It was just do what you're supposed to do at all times. And in college, that's tough. I mean, that is tough, to do the right thing because you just want to have fun. But as you get older and you look back, it's just a simple thing, and it can lead you the right direction down life. In life is just do the right thing, do it all the time, and usually good things usually work out for you. That was what he hammered home to us.
Yeah, and that's what the great coaches do. It's a simple test of your players. Are you accountable? Going to class and doing all the little things, because if you're not accountable there, you're not probably going to be accountable on the field. You're going to miss assignments. You're not going to take care of business. Who for KSU wants to know, what are some of your favorite Bill Snyder memories?
Well, what's the thing that people, and some people may know, is Coach Snyder was funny.
Yeah,
he had the driest sense of humor, and he would say stuff in team meetings. Now, nobody ever laughed in the meetings, but when it was over, we would just crack up at some of the things that he would say. I mean, Coach Snyder, he's just a funny guy, especially when you get him away, and I mean, outside of preparation time, things of that nature, he's just a funny guy. So that was the story that I take. Obviously, everything that he did for the university and all of that stuff kind of speaks for itself. But for me, it's that when outside of preparation, because you know how laser focused that he was, but when you got him away from that, he was just a funny human being, and that's my biggest memory. That's what I took, because I like being around people that are funny, and he was a funny man.
Yeah, is
a funny man.
Yeah, when I deal with members of the media, particularly back in the day, what's it like to deal with Coach Snyder? Isn't he a jerk? And I'm like, no, he's actually really funny.
No, he's not. That's right.
Yeah, he's like every time in a press conference, he'll say something that'll just have us rolling, and it's just so dry, and how he delivers it. I people just don't get that about him because they never would watch the whole context of a press conference or see him with his team. Now, who wants to know, what are some of your favorite Michael Bishop memories?
I mean, you hear the legendary stories that, it's kind of like the guy that caught the big fish. It started out as a foot long and it ended up, 100 feet long. That, oh, man, were you there when Bishop threw the ball over Bramlage? I'm like, yeah, I was there. But, I mean, I was there when the first day when he came out there and he threw the ball 75 yards in the air on a line. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what this guy can do. It's like, this is going to be interesting. But just some of the competitiveness, those types of things, even in practice, he's always wanted to win, always wanted to compete. Some of the things that he did, I mean, obviously, I just remember the first game that we played Missouri, our junior year, when he set the rushing right. I was like, you know what, this guy is special. That's when we all knew that he was going to be special, because we knew that the passing was going to get there, and he had the arm. It was just a matter of just getting, the system down and things of that nature. But when he ran for all those yards, I'm thinking, we've got something here. We have got something. So
it's remarkable. You look at your group. We talked about the junior college recruiting, how it changed football, but the use of Michael Bishop and how he was used. There were running quarterbacks in that day, but they were option guys. They weren't throwers. And Mike brought it both to the field, and Coach designed this incredible offense, that essentially used him as a tailback that could throw the ball, and that forever changed college football and the NFL, because we see it now with what some teams are doing in the league. It's really, really amazing the impact Coach had. KSU Man wants to know, what was Bishop like in the huddle?
Focused.
Yeah.
He was focused. The one thing that nobody could ever say about Mike was he didn't want to win. He wanted to win every snap.
Right.
So, and he wanted to get a touchdown every single play. Even if he was handing the ball off, he wanted the touchdown. So he was very, very focused in the huddle, laser focused in the huddle, super competitive.
Yeah, that you could just tell. If something would break down, that was the magic of Michael. He may not run the right play, but when it broke down,
right.
He would make something happen. He wasn't going to be a failure on that play. He was going to win the play.
Nope.
Absolutely. Cat
Absolutely.
12-7-6-1. That's a lot of numbers. What would be, as an observer now, what's the difference between Snyder 1.0 and then 2.0 after the retirement? What do you think the differences were?
Well, I'm not. The coaching staff basically changed.
Yeah.
So, and it got older.
Yeah.
And that was, and I hate to say it, to me, it was a problem.
I agree.
Because obviously the coach of the recruiting, you can't relate to younger guys. But that's what I saw was the coaching staff got older, and not just a little older. When I was there, the guy, Venables was a coach. He was 5 and 6 years older than we were.
Yep.
So that's from guys being in their late 50s. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to work. They were successful. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the program was a failure or anything. But that changed. That was the difference, is that the coaching staff just got so much older. And obviously we just didn't get the guys in that we need to get the guys in. And that's the big difference for me is the coaching staff turnover. It was totally different.
It's like anything else in life. When you're young, you're ready to go attack recruiting and do it. But when you're in year 25 of your career, you've got to recruit, but the fire probably isn't in your belly like it was. You can't relate to the kids as much, and you get tired of the travel, and you just want to coach. And I think that's part of what happened. Yep. They just didn't recruit nearly with the same vigor as they did early on, because those early staffs of Bill Snyder were remarkable. They're scattered all over college football.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was a big change. And it was, I just remember being being there and then even telling stories about, because I wasn't there when Bob Stoops was there or when Levitt was there, but the guys, both of them. So I can just imagine, but I know it was obviously a good time. Those first staffs and, at the beginning when Coach was there, just phenomenal coaching and recruiting. They had to put a plan together to bring the program out of the doldrums. So we give Coach Snyder a ton of the credit, but the assistants have to get credit for that as well, because, man, they made it happen.
It really was remarkable how they it's cliche, and someone asked about it later in the podcast. We'll get to it, but get a little bit better every day. And that wasn't just for you guys as players. That was for him and the program. Let's just keep moving this thing forward incrementally. It's almost like climbing a mountain. You got to start. You got to start stepping and walking, and it's one step at a time, and sometimes it's harder than others, but eventually, if you keep going, you get there. That was
right. Absolutely.
That was me being philosophical right there. K-Ned, who always asks great questions, gets back to the Nebraska game. What was that lead up, like that preparation week for that Nebraska game? What was that like on the practice field?
Well, obviously, we used to have fun in practice. Now, it's hard, a Bill Snyder practice. If anybody's ever been to one or seen it, there's not a lot of laughing and joking going on, anyway. So, but, we would have fun, in stretching and things of that. But during that week, we weren't tight, but everybody was just super focused. There was no laughing. There was no kidding around. Even in the weight room, guys weren't just, in the weight room in between sets, guys are talking, telling jokes. There really wasn't any of that. It was just, what, enough is enough. And I think everybody kind of felt that. Enough is enough. As much as Coach tried to push off, it'd been 29 years and all that. He tried to push that off. As players, you want to win for your fan base. You want to win for you, but you want to win for your fan base. So you feel that 29 years. So that was just one of the things that enough is enough. It's time to go beat these guys, and especially because we're better than them.
Right.
If we weren't better than they were and they were just better than us, then that would have been one thing. But I think we had the mindset that we were not going to lose this game this week because we are better than they are, and that was just the bottom line. So it was super, super focused.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that did you pick up? I mean, it was obvious. Everyone talked about it. The media talked about it. But on campus and just kind of being around town from fans, enough is enough. Did you pick that up from them, or did you just sense it?
You picked it up from them. You picked it up it was everywhere. Manhattan's not a metropolis, but anywhere that you went, you could sense that, hey, guys, it's time to beat these guys. And I think more of as we were around town, because we would talk about it. We would say it to people all the time. No, we're beating Nebraska this year. We're better than they are. And I'm sure fans and things had heard that before, but I think they had the sense of, this team is different. These guys are different. They carry themselves different. They play different. They're different. So it was almost an excitement to get to the game where in the past it might have been, yeah, we're excited, but I don't know that we can win. And I think the pressure built up, and we didn't really feel it because we wanted to win. But I think pressure kind of sometimes takes away when you don't know if you're as good as the other team, and pressure can build up and make you tight. Where for us, it was no, we know we're better, and we're not going to be tight. We're just going to play, and we're going to go out there and win. And we felt it around town, but we felt it. It started in the locker room. It really started with Coach. He was never going to say, hey, you got to win or anything like that. But, it started with him and his confidence.
Yeah, he's always the consummate one game at a time. But from the very start of that season, was there kind of a Nebraska vibe about that season? We're going to go get him this year. And did he do anything extra to prepare you for Nebraska?
No, obviously during preparation, during the summer, or not necessarily the summer, but during two-a-days,
right?
You're going to work on things that you're going to see down the road because it's not a one-day preparation. And he would never tell us. But I remember, when you go out and you're doing team and, going against the scout team defense, there would be defenses and okay, this is a Nebraska look. This is a Nebraska look. So they would do that. So we were prepping for it during two-a-days. Now, during the season, not so much. But during two-a-days and even during spring ball, especially, there was preparation and we were getting ready because it was, Nebraska was, again, supposed to be really good. Now, I know they had lost a couple games before they played us that year, but we wanted to win. We felt like that was the only thing that was going to stand between us and the goals that we had.
You were right. If you didn't shake that off the program's back, nobody was going to take you seriously as a title contender. And I don't think, despite the rankings, I don't think people really thought you would be there, in the position you ended up being until you did that. And you guys did it. I'd still remember as much as you talk about big plays, that when Jeff Kelly picked up that fumble, you knew. Yep. You knew it was finally over. It was finally that right. Did it. That did it. So you guys progressed through that season, and it was a remarkable season.
It was like, oh man, it was great. We just couldn't imagine. And then once he did that, I was like, man, we're really going to beat these guys. This is great.
Yeah. It was finally over. It was such a celebration, and I don't think he scored a touchdown either. Thank God we don't have replay now.
No.
Back then. But I gotta ask it. You get to the Big 12 championship game, St. Louis, Texas A&M. You guys own that game until that fumble by Mike. I've never felt a game change that quickly in my life. While it wasn't domination on the scoreboard, it was domination. And then everything changed. It was one of the weirdest, most deflating experiences I've ever seen a team go through. What was it like to be on the field during that?
It's kind of what you said. We controlled the football game. They weren't doing anything. We were getting what we wanted, and then you look up and we didn't have as many points as what I thought we should have had. And that's, anytime you're watching a football game and you kind of think, as you're playing it, you don't think that way. But as a fan, when you watch a football game, you think, oh, man, we're dominating the game, but we don't have enough points. We should be up by more. This is trouble. Playing in the game, now looking back on it, that's what I think. Playing in it, you didn't really feel that. And then everything just changed. I'm like, what is going on? And we couldn't get it turned around. Just couldn't get it turned around. And then we had the game, and unfortunately we had the fumble because that would have ended it. Yeah. That literally would have ended it if he could have just held on. And, as competitive as Mike was, he was devastated, but it was a tough afternoon. Oh, man. Yeah. And it carried over into the bowl game. We were done. We were done.
Yeah, that's what the final question of the first half is from Ricky Tikitavi. There's a lot of things in sports, in college sports, that are the K-State rule that happened to K-State that then the next season they change it. One was back in the day, a tip-in on a basketball shot wasn't a shot. So there was the Darrell Winston tip-in that was waved off because it wasn't a shot. Yep. It was just a foul. And what happened to K-State with the Alamo Bowl? The Alamo Bowl then wasn't what the Alamo Bowl is now. The Alamo Bowl now is a fairly big-time bowl. It's, it's considered one of the top bowls in the Big 12 selection. Back then, it was the equivalent of whatever the Copper Bowl is now, the Cheez-It Bowl, the whatever, they change their name every year. That's what it was. K-State slipped from being in the national championship game to still being third in the rankings in the college playoff or championship rankings where they were back then, to all the way out of those games into the Alamo Bowl. Did the team even want to go to a bowl at that point?
Well, we had a meeting and all that good stuff, and I won't get into, what was said, but guys, we didn't want to go. No. We didn't take it serious. We didn't want to go. And I remember before the Big 12 championship game, we were on the bus, and one of the assistants, were talking and said, if we lose this game, we're going to the Alamo Bowl. And we all started laughing. And he was being dead serious and had said, no, the other games have already been slotted. I go, so Texas A&M to the Alamo Bowl, or they're going to wherever, I think it was the Sugar Bowl or something. Right. And I go, so it's already been slotted. So, and we didn't take it serious because I'm thinking, there's no way that we're going to go to the Alamo Bowl. Come on now. And yet, that's what happened. And it was just so deflating. I was like, how? First of all, I don't even see how we finished third. We lost in double overtime to the number 9 team in the country in the last game of the year, and Florida State got whipped by a 5 and 6 team, and yet they finished ahead of us. But that's another conversation. That's something for another time.
That's so K-State right there. It's so K-State. Yeah,
it's just brutal.
It was traumatic. It was traumatic for the fan base, for the players, for Coach Snyder. That you guys were the best team in the country that year, weren't you?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, without question.
No question in my mind that you were the best team in the country. And someone asked, what was better, the 03 team or the 98 team by the end of the year. And 03 by the end of the year, after they got healed up from their injuries and beat Oklahoma, that was a really good football team. That was worthy of playing in a big-time bowl game. Oh, by the way, Oklahoma lost that Big 12 championship and still played for the national championship.
Sure, they did.
And but for me, it's always the 98 team. You look at the talent you guys had. You look at the players that moved on to bigger things, and even the ones that didn't, because Michael Bishop was the consummate college quarterback who probably as a quarterback was never going to be an NFL guy. He bounced around a little bit, but in reality, I think he was probably needed to be a running back or receiver or something at the next level if he wanted to do that. The NFL game just wasn't going to accept his style in the league at that point.
Right.
Okay, that's it for the first half of the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. We'll be back on the other side of this break with more with Brien Hanley down in Frisco, Texas, as we power forward with this edition.
The gang will return with more of the Powercat Podcast.
My days working, taking care of my little ones can be a lot. I checked out care.com and it was so easy for me to find local, experienced, and background check sitters. Finding our babysitter was way more affordable than I thought. Care.com makes it super easy. Search for qualified candidates. You can view their profiles, read reviews and ratings, check their availability, send messages directly, get the help that you need. Care.com should be every person's go-to.
The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/247 and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, permitted parishes only, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York, or visit oasas.ny.gov/gambling. Standard text messaging rates apply. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Utah, and other states where prohibited.
Back to Fitz of the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald and Brien Hanley, our new football analyst here with GoPowercat.com, as he comes in on post-game podcast with us all season long. I think we will be appearing throughout the year, except for one game in which I'm going to sacrifice and go to Las Vegas to cover basketball. I'm a giver, Brien. I'm a giver.
I understand.
But fortunately, that game is the Texas game in kind of your backyard, a couple hours away. So you're actually going to go down to that game for us and do that post-game podcast with Riley Gates. So that'll be a good experience. And Texas is...
Oh, looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Texas, every time I go to a game at Texas, I'm like, the stadium's incredible. There's fans are everywhere. It should be awesome. And you're like, this is the most unintimidating college football environment I've ever seen. I mean, it's clearly in the lower half of the conference in my book. Iowa State's tough. Oklahoma State's tough. Texas Tech's tough because you learn things about your mother when you go there. But I remember someone really, I can't say the words to John Weefald as President Weefald walked off the field in Lubbock. I'm like, wow, that was interesting. And but there's some really
I can only imagine
tough Big 12 venues, but Texas is never one of them. Although this year, I'd say it, I think the Longhorns are going to be pretty darn good. I think they finally found the right coach. Well, let's move back into. The questions from Wabash Station. The second half is sponsored by our friends down at the High-Low in Aggieville. And when you get into Manhattan for football season, make sure you stop in the High-Low. That first game's a 6 o'clock kick. I'm not a big fan of 6 o'clock kicks. I think they're actually hotter than just getting it over earlier in the day. But K-State fans will be in town. And if you don't want to do your tailgating, if it's a really hot day, you don't want to do it on the pavement, go to Aggieville, hang out, and go to the high-low. I think you really like everyone down there. Start her off now with GT Cat. And we're going to move into more modern era here. Questions about this team and the program. But as you look at the program right now and what Chris Kleiman's inheriting from Bill Snyder, what's the biggest thing he needs to get back that Bill Snyder had in the program before it kind of leveled out into kind of middle of the road?
Got to get depth.
Yeah.
Got to get depth.
Nailed it.
You know, I mean, any injury that we have, basically at any position, and it's a nightmare.
Right.
So we just gotta get the depth back that we used to always have. I mean, no team clearly can lose 3 or 4 guys at one position, but we would always have somebody. I mean, we had depth. I mean, that was one thing that we always had depth, especially on the defensive line. I think that more than any other position is where we have got to get the depth back, is the defensive line, more than anything.
It's astonishing. And you know, particularly Snyder 2.0, and maybe even 1.0 with the 2003 game, one key injury, and it all came apart. And that happened to be quarterback.
Right.
But, there was other injuries on the team that year. But I think of the, 2012 team, goes to Baylor, and they have an injury. Ty Zimmerman goes out. Ty Zimmerman was the free safety. You got everyone lined up. You got everyone on the defense in the right spot, and then he goes out, and it looked like nobody was lined up in the right spot at Baylor. I mean, and the guy who replaced him was pretty good himself, Dante Barnett, but. He was also a freshman who wasn't quite there. And, when Chris Kleiman came at Brien, that's what he said. He was astonished at the lack of depth. That they have a really good group of core players that are Big 12 guys, that they got to go get more Big 12 guys. They got to have more bodies, and when they have an injury, someone that can step in. And that doesn't happen with one recruiting class or even 2. It's going to take 3 or 4 years to build that kind of depth.
Exactly. I mean, I don't want to say it's a rebuilding job, but it's a retooling of getting the guys in the program that we're going to need to compete on a week in, week out basis. It's not that we can't compete and beat teams, things of that nature. So I'm not saying that, but to get us where we want to go and where we want to be as a program, we just got to get the depth.
Yeah. If there was a big game late in the year, Coach Snyder, his last few years, he would finish strong, which was amazing because by then they were into their, their depth, and they weren't as good as they were early in the year physically. But now the guys were beginning to check in. It was a testament to his coaching often that he'd win games late in the year because the team was really a shell of what it. I look back a few years ago, they lost DJ Reed before they go to Oklahoma State, and they won. It's like, that's just Coach Snyder. KSU number 1 wants to know this. As a former player and as a junior college transfer, where do you stand on players being able to play right away after transferring? And I don't think he means like JUCO. I mean like program to program. Kids transfer from Tennessee, so they'd be able to go play at Texas right away.
Well, I'm a person that I'm a pro player. Yeah. So obviously I was a player. So I believe that a guy, because if coaches can do it, then why can't a player do it? Now, you get to do that once, but, you're trying to go 2 and 3 years or 2-3 years in a row because you couldn't figure it out or you didn't get the playing time. I think if you transfer one time, you should be able to go and play right away. Now, that's just me. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's my feeling on it, because if as an 18-year-old, and it happened to me. I mean, when I came out of college, I went and played basketball at Xavier, and Pete Gillen recruited me, and before I got there, he was gone. And back in those days, you couldn't transfer and go play right away if that happened. I mean, that was, hey, too bad, so sad, you committed to the school. So my whole thing is, and guys are committing to coaches. I mean, they just do.
They do.
I mean, so you say, it's a coach. You're going to fit into a system, and if coaches are allowed to leave, and I know it's a profession for them, but if I'm going to spend the next 4 to 5 years there, it's got to mean something to me too. I mean, my investment is in that, and if you leave, then my investment's not going to be the same. So I just believe now it can get tricky because maybe you have a team that half the team leaves because the coach leaves. I don't think that would ever happen, but I mean, it is what it is at this point. I just believe that if a guy wants to transfer, and they do it once, I believe they should be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm just astonished now. They're like, well, we got to look at this senior grad transfer rule. I don't know if it's good for the programs. Who cares, man? You
Exactly.
said it. The coaches are professionals. It's part of their job. If the kid has graduated from an institution, his obligation to that school should be done. And if he has remaining eligibility, I don't even think he should have to play this game of you have to go graduate transfer to a program and get into a grad program that isn't offered at your current institution. Come on, cut the crap. He's got his high school or his college degree. If a guy like Alex Delton wants to go transfer and play somewhere else, he's got his degree, man. Go let him play. He's a grown man, and he's got a year of eligibility left. Let him do it. It just bothers the hell out of me. Well, it's really not good for college football. So it's really not about the student athlete, is it? It's really about the game.
Exactly.
Purple Powerhouse, what's your opinion on this coaching staff so far as you view them from the outside?
They're really aggressive in recruiting.
Yeah,
I know we're beating a dead horse with it, but I know they're really aggressive with recruiting, and they're doing a good job. So I kind of have a little bit of an insight with the coaching staff. A player that I coached, a couple of guys, Lamar Chapman and Ian Moses that played at K-State, we coached when I lived in Kansas City a while back. We used to coach basically a middle school team.
Right.
And one of the players, Jabril Cox, is a star linebacker for North Dakota State. Well, we coached him when he was, 12 and 13 years old. We keep in contact with him, more Ian and Lamar do, and he loves him. So he loves him, said he's a great coach, was excited and for him to get the opportunity. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. I know we're just attacking things a little bit differently. Change is not a bad thing all the time. I mean, we can't be afraid of change. I know people were upset with the way that it happened,
right?
But I'm not sure that it didn't need to happen 3 or 4 years prior to this. So, and it was never going to end well. I mean, it was never going to end well because I don't believe Coach wanted to stop coaching. So I think guys just need to give them a chance and be excited for the program. I know the program, the fan base is a little disenfranchised right now, but we got to just stay the course. Do we want the program to be successful? Clearly we all do. Give the guy a chance. You see what he's doing in recruiting. I mean, they're attacking it. They're doing well. So I think we'll be okay. I'm excited.
A lot of staffs come in and have a flurry of recruiting and do a good job. I think David Beatty did it at Kansas, and all those kids from Louisiana, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be awesome, and then one or something signed. So really for me, can you complete the sale? You don't want these kids as football season starts to get buyer's remorse and say, you know what, I think I'm going to look around. But when you're hovering around 20 commitments going into football season, that is so radically different than Bill Snyder's approach, which really worked early on. Just as junior college recruiting, in your case, you could wait till December to recruit junior college guys because nobody was really seriously looking at them except for programs that they'd probably settle on or they might get a break and go to someplace. But Michael, think about Michael Bishop sitting out there in December uncommitted because everyone thinks he's a safety and not a quarterback. Bill Snyder could do that. Well, eventually that changed. JUCO, the clock got moved up, and coach still tried to recruit late, and it didn't work. And then it happened with high schools. Now kids want to commit in their junior year. The whole process is sped up. I understand what Coach Snyder's saying. I don't want to recruit someone off of what they are as a 16-year-old boy. I would prefer to recruit them as an 18-year-old man, as a senior, and see how they play. But that's just not how it works. It became a master of projecting. I see this kid. I know what he's going to be in 2-3 years in our program. He may not look the part now, but he will. And I think this staff Chris Kleiman and Connor Riley, who recruited Kansas City for North Dakota State and has continued to do it for K-State, I think they're really gifted at that, just like Snyder was. I can see what you're going to be, not what you are.
Exactly.
Powercat Ryan wants to know what excites you the most about the 2019 season.
I think the unknown for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And the unknown. I mean, we had gotten so predictable in play calling and predictable in everything. I just think the unknown. And I'm not. Again, it's not to bash Coach Snyder. I just think that doing things a different way every now and then is a good thing. And other teams, it's one thing to see what North Dakota State did and all that kind of stuff and scout, but I just think the unknown for us as fans is going to be a good thing. Seeing some different plays, seeing some different aspects or different approach to the game, I think that's going to be good for us. That's what I'm really excited about, because I know we're going to play a lot of young guys. We're going to have to. So that's going to be the key to building the program in the future. It may not equate to 10 wins this year, but 2 or 3 years down the road, it might.
Whether it's life or football or anything else, there's not a big difference between being in a groove or being in a rut. They're the same thing. You just got to recognize the difference. And K-State kind of went from being in the groove and really things were going great to just being predictable and in a rut that, things got to be shaken up, and I don't think Coach was prepared to do it, unfortunately. K-Net, bring him back in here. While only Bill Snyder could win at K-State, given the situation back in 1989 when he arrived, do you buy this narrative we hear from outside that only Bill Snyder can win at K-State, even with today's situation, players, facilities, tradition, etc.?
Absolutely not. I don't believe that. I believe Coach Snyder was the only man for the job then.
Yep.
But I don't believe that he's the only job for the guy now. Now, the thing that people are freaking out about is because they hired somebody before. I go, but you have to take a look at that situation. I mean, that was a bad hire. I mean, he had no business taking that job. He didn't know what he was doing, clearly. And at least that's my opinion.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that way for everybody. I mean, I think that this is a proven head coach, where before we didn't get a proven head coach. We have a proven head coach, knows what he's doing, has a plan, and is going to stick to the plan. And as long as we as fans do that, I think it'll be okay. But the notion that because I hear it a lot, is, well, remember what it was like back then. I go, but we're not that program that we were in 1989. We're not that. So you can't look at it as we're going to go back there. We're not that program. I go, I know we're not at the peak of where we were. I go, but we're not that program that couldn't win a football game. I go, so when Coach Snyder leaves, he left it better clearly than what it started. So we're going to be okay. We just got to give it time to get back to where we need to be, but we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine.
When he retired in 2005 and they hired Ron Prince in 2006, their first stop was Jim Leavitt. And they offered the job to Jim, who, had South Florida going. He was in a pretty good situation. He had some family things that kept him there. And I stop and wonder sometimes, where would Jim Leavitt and Kansas State football be if he had made the move? Because I think he's a great coach. I think he would have been successful. And ever since his incident at South Florida, he's just kind of been a vagabond, out there in college football or the NFL coaching. And I almost wonder if he wouldn't still be here coaching as the head coach if he had come in 2006. It's one of those historical things that intrigues me.
Yeah, I think he'd be there. I think we'd be well. I think we'd be getting 10, 12 guys a year from Florida, just like he was doing before. I think we would be just fine, because he had a relationship with those Florida high school coaches, and they would have sent kids out to Manhattan, Kansas. I think the program would be totally different. Not to say, again, I know I'm beating a dead horse again, not to say that Coach Snyder had done a bad job, but the recruiting had fallen off. Let's just be honest. And I don't think that would have happened with Leavitt. I just don't believe that. I don't believe it happens now where he's at. No, I just believe he's a really good football coach.
Yeah, he goes against what I said earlier in the podcast. As you get older, you kind of lose the fire for recruiting. He still has it. He might be.
Yeah, he does.
He might be out at Oregon right now, and I'm not real sure where he's at right now. But when he gets in again, he's going to just recruit like the Dickens. He's really amazing, and he's a good Twitter follow too. So we've gone from Coach Snyder to get better, a little bit better each day, and now you have a stack one good day on top of another. This is also from K-Ned. Many are pointing to the differences in media access, etc., between these two coaches, but don't you see a lot of similarities here between Snyder and Kleiman's approaches?
I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Now, it's one thing because, I mean, he's not – I'm not saying he's old guy, but he's not a guy in his 40s. I mean, he's not some super young guy.
Right.
So they're going to have some of the same, principles in life, and it's successful. Just because you recruit a different way or you may coach a different style, having the same, principles is something that you can have at any age. And I think that's a good thing. Not a good thing. I think that's a great thing. So I do see some of the similarities in that aspect of it, And it's just the same way with everyday life. I mean, as a college football player, it's kind of what you mentioned earlier. Go to class. That's your first stop. Be on time for class. Be on time for weights. Be on time for meetings. Be on time for practice. Do all of those things. Get better at each of those every single day and continue to do that the next day. I mean, those kind of similarities, you can never go wrong when you're doing those things and doing things the right way.
Yeah, how he gets about things is different. And offensively, we're going to see him get to things differently. There's going to be more motion, different looks.
Right.
Skylar Thompson told me it's actually, it's more complex because of all the pre-snap things going on. But at the end of the day, they want to be physical and run the football. Sound familiar?
Yep.
I mean, it's just a traditional brand of football. And you mentioned Coach Kleiman's age. Well, he's unfortunately younger than me. He is in, I think, the top 4 in this conference. He comes in, and it'd be top 3 if not for Les Miles, also being one of the oldest coaches in the league. But you got Coach Patterson and Coach Gundy, who's very comparable to Coach Kleiman. And then this conference is really young in coaching. It's really amazing, and I think that's why the brand of Big 12 football is always so good, because these guys are bringing such fresh ideas to the table. And with that, I think K-State was stagnant doing the things that they were trying to do, but I also think it does continue to leave that window open for traditional football can work against defenses made to stop the spread. Period.
Of course it does. Yeah. Absolutely.
You smash them in the mouth. They're not used to that. They're just not. Those offensive linemen don't do that in the spread. They hold a block for 3 seconds and the ball's gone. It's finesse.
Exactly.
Drives me whack.
And I can't stand it. Just throw that out there.
Yeah, good. We're on the same page. I just can't stand it. Okay, let's wound up the second half of the Powercat podcast from a question from one of my favorite names on the site. And this, let me zone in here. Big time Timmy Jim is the name of the poster. I didn't know you had that many available characters in the name, but you sure did. Do you think the tone of the program from, players were talking about not being fun anymore? I don't know the plan for Snyder was ever fun, but there was a lot of misery around the program, and I don't think fans were quite plugged into it and to understand it. To now, this kind of joy they have for being out there and the energy that the new coaches have brought. Do you think that's worth a win or two, just that alone?
100%.
Interesting.
100%. Changing things and doing things a little bit differently and just having a fresh approach and making it a little bit more fun. People sometimes equate having fun with not working hard, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Is you can have fun while working hard. You can have laser focus and still have fun. I don't know. I think that's more of a societal thing. Is that people think that if you're having fun that you're not working hard. Well, that doesn't have to be the case. I mean, you can have plenty of fun. And as kids and times have changed, guys want to have more fun. They want to do a couple of different things different, but that doesn't mean they're not going to work. The coaches are going to be, look, we're going to do this, and we're going to have fun, But when you step out of line, you're going to pay the price for that.
Right.
So what would you rather do? And guys want to have fun. So if they're going to, if they're going to have to pay or face consequences for not having the focus, and, it's not that coaches are being lax. They're basically letting you be a man. And if the consequence or if you do the wrong things, you're going to pay the consequence, and the fun gets taken away. Well, guys don't want to have the fun taken away. So I believe that it's a good thing. I believe that it's a great thing.
Yeah, that's not to make this self-indulgent, but that's kind of how I run this company. The guys work extremely hard, but you know what? The young guys, if you want to take a break and play Fortnite for an hour on your television in your office, have at it, man. Because I know you're going to work 12 hours today, so just go take a break. And I always like to brag that we are a nap conducive environment in our shop here. If you're a dragon, man, just go take a nap. I got a couch in my office. Go lay down.
Right.
Get it done. So let's wind up now with this second half of the Powercat podcast. Brien, this has been great. We're going to take you into the overtime after the break, and I don't know.
Sure.
The overtime is sometimes serious, but mostly the people ask stupid questions. We didn't have as many. I think people were being very respectful of you, and they didn't have as many questions like that. So I'm gonna add a few in there myself. But
that'll work.
We will be back on the other side of this small break of the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
The gang will return with more of the Powercat Podcast.
So I'm a father of one. I gotta find a babysitter. I found Care.com and I was blown away. Through the platform, I was able to find local and experienced candidates along with their reviews and rates, which were way more affordable than I anticipated. Care.com really put me at ease knowing that they were all required to go through a background check. If you're like me and you need to find someone reliable for your childcare necessities, check out Care.com. Find the ideal sitters for your childcare needs.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Back to Fitz of the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
Welcome back to the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Tim Fitzgerald, Go Powercat publisher, along with Brien Hanley, our new football analyst for Postgame Podcast during the 2019 season. Brian's former Kansas State player, part of that amazing junior college recruiting class in 1997 and 98 that changed the face of Kansas State football and college football forever, and he's down in Frisco, Texas. What's it like living in Frisco? I love Frisco.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I lived in Kansas City. When I left K-State, I moved to Kansas City, and we lived there until me and my wife lived there until 2011, and we moved here. And if I say it to everybody, I love Kansas City. Dallas is just better, and Frisco is even better than that. So if I'd have known what I knew 5 years previous, I'd have moved 5 years sooner. It's great. And it gets hot. Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
It doesn't get cold.
But you know what? In July, it doesn't get cold. I mean, that was the one thing. And I remember on our first New Year's, it was 68 degrees, and I was out back grilling. I'm like, you know what? I can get used to this. I can get used to this.
I can't remember. I looked up the stat. We had a couple years where we had the Big 12 Media Days there in Frisco at the training facility at the Ford Center, whatever it is. And I looked up the population of Frisco, Texas in 1989 when Bill Snyder was hired, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like 1,000. I mean, there was no one there. It was a dusty little, north central Texas town that eventually got connected to Dallas and blew up into just a beautiful place. It's wonderful because everything's new in Frisco, but
everything is new.
It's well planned out though. It's well thought.
Oh yeah.
And I sense that soon there might be an airport up closer to you. That's the big thing about Dallas, is I think they need a secondary airport somewhere that is less.
Well, and that's the thing, yeah, because everything's south and then it's west, big DFW, but they're going to have to do something because there's just too many people moving up north in that direction for there not to be another airport. Because Love Field is, it's a long, long way for people to go. And DFW is just so crowded all the time. They need something else.
Yeah, I like Love Field because when you get there, you're in the middle of Dallas and you're ready to go, but you're pretty much flying southwest,
right.
So that's always nice too. Well, let's get into your questions from Wabash Station here in the overtime. Sports sponsored by Fridge Wholesaler. When you come into town for football, you know where you got to go. Just go in there, say, "Give me booze." And they will give you booze. Well, you got to pay for it, but they will provide you with refreshments of And if you've got questions about craft beers, wines, vodkas, anything, it's not just a bunch of people there to go to the cash register. They've got experts that will help you out. Let's get into the overtime now, and the first question is, EMA09 want to know: have you binge watched Last Chance U yet? And you just told me before that you were getting ready to start season 4, but you have watched season 3 with Jason Brown. The dude is a trip.
Yes. Oh my God, he's absolutely crazy. It's one. And when I say that, people kind of say that as cliche. I believe that he's got some. I don't know what his issue is. I read that he got arrested for some fraud or something like that.
He posed as a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, my goodness. Just, I don't know. Winning football games in Independence, Kansas, I guess, is that serious that you had to bring this guy in? Because they should have fired him after the first year of what he was doing and what he was saying, but they won. And that literally is the definition of the price of winning.
Right.
That was literally the definition of the price of winning. You know what? This guy is horrible for the town, horrible for everything involved. But because we won football games, we will keep him on. And now look what happens. So there's always a consequence.
Yeah. Was it interesting, you watched season 3 to see Independence playing Coffeyville? All the games are your old stomping grounds. It had to be kind of surreal.
Yeah, it was actually. And they played at Coffeyville. And the thing is that they taped it. It was literally the week after I went down there for a Hall of Fame ceremony, and it was the week after they played Independence. And I was watching. I was like, "Wow, that's crazy!" I was literally there the week before, and I don't get a chance to go back to Coffeyville much, if ever, because it's not that big of a place, or I have no really reason to go back there, but it definitely was surreal. And I always hold Coffeyville a special place in my heart because, the coach that I had there, Coach Skip Foster, he transformed me into a man. So I will always have the utmost respect for everything about that town because it was my first time really being away from home. I wasn't, when I went to Xavier to play basketball, that was only 80 miles from where I lived. Didn't work out clearly. And I went to Coffeyville and it was like, look, this is my second chance. Everybody doesn't get second chances. This is mine. I got to make it. And I'm out here by myself. I had no family to drive home to. I had no friends that were there. And the whole town and the school, helped me grow up. So it was great. And I love it. Love everything about it. So,
I'm really intrigued by that because you see these kids, and particularly now that the Jayhawk Conference has lifted their limitation on the number of out-of-state players. It's a free-for-all.
Right.
But there's a lot of kids being transplanted from far away and really bad situations into small-town Kansas. That has to be just a culture shock and a half for anyone that goes through that. What was it like when you rolled into Coffeyville and you went, okay, here I am?
Yeah. Well, I didn't even go visit. My mom and my aunt and cousin, they drove down to go look at Coffeyville before I even went. They drove down in the summer to check everything out, and I hadn't even visited. I didn't do anything, and I was just going. And so when I got there, I mean, I'm from Louisville. Louisville's not the biggest city in America, but it's decent size. We got 1 million people. And I get there, and I'm like, wow, man, this is nothing. I mean, now it's totally different now. I mean, they actually have a Pizza Hut, where they didn't even have a Pizza Hut before.
Dude,
and they have a Subway. Yeah. They didn't have a Subway. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Literally, where am I going to eat? There was a McDonald's and a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and that was it. So, and it was nothing. And so it was a culture shock for me, but I personally had a personal goal of, look, I'm here. And I think that's what's different about, there was only so many of us out-of-state guys. Now, we bonded with the Kansas guys and all that, and we all became friends, but we all kind of bonded together, the out-of-state guys, as, hey, we're here for 18 months,
right?
And then we're getting out. And that was the whole thing. And as you talk to other junior college guys that were around in other schools, it was the same way. It's like, look, we're going to be here for 18 months and we're getting out. But if you go back and you talk to each one of them, Jeff Kelly, Darnell McDonald, Gerald Neesman, who's my roommate, you talk to those guys, and every single one of them said they wouldn't do anything different. And I'm the same way. I would go to junior college. I would do it the exact same way. It was great.
Yeah, that's, and as much as we ridiculed Jason Brown, he puts a ton of kids in. He gets kids. It turns out they had high GPAs, whether that's actual education or just, giving them grades. I don't know, but they had high GPAs. They moved on to Division I programs, and you know what? Most of the kids say good things about him, even the ones it looks like he had bad relationships with. I just find him intriguing, and I wonder if the producers didn't do him a disservice for entertainment purposes and never show the soft side of him that, we talked about loving his players, but you don't really see that at all in this series.
No. And you're right, and that could very well be it because, they're going to put out there what they think is going to sell. So you could be very right, because I haven't really heard just what you said. I've never heard any players that left from there, and went on to play. Those guys didn't talk bad about him at all.
Yeah. I'm just intrigued by his background of being a white guy from Compton. That's just – that is such a unique background. That is just – culturally, that just amazes me. It's just like, wow, no wonder he's just a strange dude. I think he's a very, very strange dude, and I can't imagine how he stuck out as a sore thumb in a small town.
Oh, my goodness.
One of the greatest names ever on the website, but I kind of cringe every time I read it. This question is from Infected Testicle. Yes. Last Chance U makes junior college football look like a prison sentence that must be served before moving on to the good life. That wasn't your experience, was it?
Absolutely not. I don't know. Some of the dorms, you see some of the places where they're staying and things of that nature. Coffeyville wasn't that way. Yeah. So I know other places might have been. Where the Coffeyville now has a brand new dorm and things. But when I was there, it was quads, and they were older, but they weren't junky. The buildings that we went to for classes and things of that nature, it wasn't junk. It was nice. So my experience was totally different. And I see some of it on TV, and I'm like, wow, they got to stay in a place like that?
Yeah.
I go, but Coffeyville was absolutely, it was 150% different than what you see on Last Chance U, not to mention the town. They never really show any of the interaction from the town, but I guess they do a little bit with Independence. Coffeyville is a Coffeyville Red Raven football town. Even more than the high school. It is a Coffeyville town. They love that junior college. So, my experience was great. The whole town loved Coffeyville football.
That's interesting. I think when I think of Coffeyville, I think of that. I think of a town that junior college is ingrained into the culture of the town. And while they don't have it, they don't have football at Cloud County up in Concordia. It's kind of the same way. It's really intertwined into the very culture of the community. Let's be honest, it's not Independence. It's like that thing that we have in town. And it's nice, nice that we're good, but what did we pay to get that way? Let's see, we got another one from Infected Testicle. What did make you pick K-State?
Oh, it was pretty simple. I went to college first, failed. And I went, and when it was time to go to junior college, my dream, I'm from Louisville, and I'm pretty open about this. I've been a I'm from Jeffersonville, Indiana, which is right across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. So I lived closer to the University of Louisville than my aunt did, and she lived in Louisville. So I was a diehard Louisville fan. I still am. But I decided at that time, I've had success in Kansas, and my whole thing was about being successful. It wasn't about being close to home. I had done that already, and I knew that it was time for me to be successful. And Kansas State was way better than Louisville. I had the opportunity to go to Tennessee, and Tennessee had lied to me about a couple of different things. And I decided Kansas State was going to be the place for me. I had a ton of success. My grades were way, way better. I'd met some great people, and heck, I met my future wife. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go to Kansas State because, number one, they didn't lie. They told me, we have a left guard position and we want you to come in and play. And from day one, that's what I did. and so it just made that decision so much easier because I'd had the success. My grades were better, and I thought, you know what, it's all about success for me. I don't need to go back home and be closer to the things that I wasn't successful with. I want to be here and play here. Plus, Kansas State was really, really good. Louisville was terrible. And Tennessee was okay. I take that back. They were good too. But I wanted to be part of something that was new and not what everybody knew. I'm just that way. I like to be part of different things. And where I'm from, nobody had really heard of Kansas State before. Heck, I hadn't heard of them until I went to Coffeyville. I'd heard of them, but I didn't really know anything about it. And then when I went up there, I was like, man, this place is great. So that made my decision easy, is that they were very truthful. I'd had success. So it wasn't a long, drawn-out process for me. It was like I went up there, loved it, met a couple people. I'm like, this is where I'm going.
That's cool. That's really cool. But then a couple years after you left, K-State had the home and home with Louisville. How tough was that on you?
Yes. It was, and I went to the game in Manhattan, and it was difficult. Mm-hmm. But I went, and I supported, because – and everybody always asks me, well, who are you going to root for? I'm like, I'm going to root. And I go, and if I'm in Kansas State Stadium, I'm going to root for Kansas State. So, because I love Kansas State. I just love Kansas State. I love everything about it. Regardless of what I've loved my whole life, you're not going to be able to take away the love that I have for Kansas State. It's just not. That's just part of me. It's always going to be a part of me. But it was tough, but it was fun. I went with I have a guy that I played with, Milford Stevenson, a former K-State guy, and we had some fun with it. He had a lot of fun with me.
Louisville was real close to being in the Big 12 when they added West Virginia. They should have added Louisville and Cincinnati at the same time. They didn't do it. I think the conference would be in really good shape if they had done that. That'd have been weird for you, wouldn't it? If Louisville joined the Big 12.
It would have, but it was my dream for that to happen.
Yeah.
I wanted it to happen. It would have made things just so much better. It literally would have been my dream. It would have been weird, and I probably would have went to every game that was in Manhattan, and it would have been weird. But you know what? Again, if I went to Kansas State, to say the least, that's where I went, and if I'm in their stadium, I'm going to root for them. So be it.
My friend Wagcat is about your age, and he asked a question. You remember seeing you at the rec. You're 3 Bills, and you're playing hoops, and you could still play hoops. Comment on that. Comment on the basketball thing, because that was one of the anomalies about you. You were a big dude, but you had great feet and athleticism, which makes you a great offensive lineman, but you could hoop, man. You were good.
Yeah, I was okay. I was okay. The thing about it was I grew up, and that was part of my decision-making out of high school, which was a mistake, is that I grew up in Indiana. And in that whole area, Indiana, Louisville, I mean, it's a corridor of about 2 hours from the University of Indiana to Louisville to the University of Kentucky, which is gigantic basketball country.
Right.
And so playing basketball in Indiana, growing up in high school basketball in Indiana, which if anybody doesn't know, it is absolutely crazy. It's basically the opposite of Texas football, or the same as Texas high school football. It's just basketball. It's literally the same. And so that's what I thought that I should do out of high school, even though pretty much all my friends were saying, Brien, you got to go play football. And I just thought, I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to do it, which turned out to be a mistake. But not really that big of a mistake, because who knows? I'm not a person that looks back and think, oh, well, I should have done this. I should have done that. Because if I'd have done that, who knows if I would even be alive? Something could have happened. I could have get hit by a bus or whatever. So, but yeah, I love playing basketball. I mean, I was pretty good. I mean, I'll give you that. I'll admit that. I was decent. I was decent.
What was the strength of your game?
Well, when I was younger, and I tell everybody this to say, I was always a tall kid growing up. But my elementary school coach believed that the tallest kids should be the guys that dribbled the basketball. So when I was in the second grade, I played on our elementary school team, and he taught me to be, well, my dad really taught me, but he believed, my high school or elementary coach believed that I should dribble the ball and be a guard. So I could handle the ball. So I could always handle the ball and drive, and I got into high school, I played pretty much all over the place, but the strength for me was just kind of, I mean, I played in the post, but I went to college, only 6'2", so I could shoot, I could drive, I kind of did a little thing, but a little bit of everything, but mostly it was, the strength of my game was just getting to the basket.
Yeah, it's funny, that's contrary to what most youth coaches do. If you're the big kid, they put your back to the basket and put you in the post. That's good. That coach was smart. Let's wind.
His philosophy. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Well, his philosophy, he got it from Denny Crum, which coached at Louisville. Uh-huh. And Denny Crum always recruited guys that were pretty much the same size. And he always believed in big guards, just like because he got it from John Wooden. So he always had guards that were 6'5" and above. That was his thing. So my elementary coach was just loved Denny Crum, and that's what he believed, and that's where he got it from. And he used to tell us that. And since, we grew up in Louisville, everybody's a Louisville fan, so we loved it. So it just so happened that it worked out for me. It didn't always work out for everybody, but it worked out for me. But my dad was also a big product of that. I mean, my dad taught me how to play basketball at a young age. He was the coach, never overbearing. He was not that guy. He taught me how to do things the right way. Like, he didn't even allow me to shoot a basketball the regular way until I could get it up there, because he didn't want me throwing the ball up there and then having bad habits of me how to shoot. He made me shoot granny shots until I was able to get the ball up there. Smart. And so so it was just one of those things. I had really good coaching in basketball from the time I was 5 years old until the time I was in high school. Really good coaching.
It drives me crazy watching hoops now, and the guys that don't know how to shoot a basketball. They've known how to just kind of do what they always did to get the ball in the hole, but nobody's taken them aside and said, this is how you shoot the basketball. And it drives me nuts.
Guys can't make a 15-foot jump shot, Tim. They can dribble between their legs 11 times. They can spin around. They can jump out of the gym, literally. But if you ask them, hey, you got to make this 15-foot jump shot or you can't leave, they'd be in the gym all night.
I know. It's
crazy.
Yeah, it's just, I don't want to blame AAU, but it's just kind of the theme of how basketball's gone now. It's all about flash over substance. Well, let's wind up this podcast and bring it full circle here. Purple Powerhouse asked about your podcast, and Let's Talk Ball with Big B, and it's ltbpodcast.com, correct?
That is correct.
ltbpodcast.com. Let's Talk Ball. It's a great podcast. I love it. I'm not one to sit around and listen to podcasts very often, especially sports ones. I'll listen to other stuff, but I do sports. This is what I do.
Right.
But man, I listen to you. It's good. And Purple Powerhouse also says he loves your humor and passion you bring to the podcast. But what was finally it that made you take the plunge into the podcast?
I could make up a whole bunch of stuff. It was basically people just finally pushing me enough to do it. My wife, two of my good friends. I mentioned Darren. And another one of my really good friends, they just said, Brien, you just need to do it. It's time. You've talked about it. Enough is enough. It's time to just do it. And so when me and Darren kind of came up with the concept of what we were going to do, so we enjoy it. We kind of leave the current events things to other places to do and just kind of dive into other aspects of sports. And I think there's a place for that. And that was one of the things that we were looking for. We were looking for a little bit of a niche where everybody's doing, current events. Everybody's doing a video on, what just happened and what did LeBron James say yesterday and all that. And we just decided that we would do different aspects, so I'm even thinking about putting one together about sports movies and just talking about how funny they are and things of that nature. So we're just taking a different aspect, different style into the podcast and looking at different avenues, but it's also things that people are interested in. So that's what's made it really fun is we've gotten some feedback, a lot of feedback from people, and we're just having a really, really good time doing it.
I love that you take a topic and you really drill down on a topic.
Yes.
He mentioned the rivalry show that you did, and he loved it, and he was, he's right. I don't think K-State will ever have one of those rivalries because those rivalries have to have roots that you just can't fake.
Right.
Maybe there's a rivalry that pops up like Clemson, Alabama, that is because of the magnitude of the games they play that wasn't really going back. But, if you look at college football, Alabama, Auburn, Notre Dame, USC, Michigan, Ohio State, Nebraska, Oklahoma, God, rest in peace, Texas, Texas A&M, those things are rooted into the earliest days of college football, and you just can't fake it. You can't fake it.
Nope.
I mean,
you can't fake it at all.
If Nebraska was still in the Big 12 and K-State and Nebraska were still bumping heads, Nebraska would never look at K-State as a rival. They just wouldn't, and I understand why. I completely understand why, because they want their rival to go back, to when face masks were just put on the helmets. That's what they wanted to find it. Well, it's really great to have you part of the Go Powercat family, this member of the staff, so to speak, even though it's kind of a long-distance analysis gig you're doing for us. But it's going to be great because you watch these games, you watch them on TV, and in many ways that's a better way to watch them. I hate to tell K-State that.
Right.
Everyone's struggling with season ticket sales. I think K-State is too. But those darn TVs, they're just too good to pass up, and not having to fight traffic and crowds, and you can really stop and replay and really dissect a game. So it's going to be fun.
Exactly.
I'll be at most of the games.
Absolutely.
And then I'll call you up and we'll do this exact same thing, and then we'll post it as soon as possible after the game, after every K-State football game this season. Good, buddy.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to it.
I appreciate it very much. Take care down there in beautiful Texas. Oh, one quick question for the overtime. How good is Whataburger? Are you a Whataburger guy?
It's outstanding. It's literally 2 minutes from my house, and I can't get enough. I can't. I mean, I probably should leave it alone, but I can't get enough. Can't get enough.
I too am a big guy, but thankfully I don't have Whataburger because I know what I'd be eating for dinner after I leave here tonight from work. I'd be eating Whataburger. And probably on Friday when I wake up and I'm going to go grab a beer with a buddy in the afternoon, I'd probably have Whataburger before I did it because it gives you a good base. Whataburger just gives you that good base to plan the rest of your day around, no matter what's going on.
Outstanding. I love it. Literally, anytime somebody comes in town and stays at our house, when are we going to Whataburger? And Chick-fil-A is across the street, and they would still rather go to Whataburger.
Well, one of my favorite things I always tell people, there's a place in Waco, and it's probably the most scenic place in Waco. There is a Whataburger and an In-N-Out within 3 lots of each other. and in between the two is a McDonald's. How in hell that McDonald's stays in business, I don't know, but there it is. I mean, there's your three, you got, I want Whataburger, I want In-N-Out. They're both fantastic. Or I can have McDonald's.
Yes, right. Unbelievable.
Thank you, partner. I appreciate it very much, and we'll talk to you all through football season. This has been another edition of the Powercat Podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.